Um, Imagine surviving a childhood surrounded by meth labs and like homeless encampments. You rely on sheer grit just to make it through the day, right?
Right.
Only to find that achieving your ultimate Hollywood dream is the exact thing that pushes your mind and body to the absolute breaking point.
Yeah. I mean, it is the ultimate paradox of modern fame. We assume that crossing that threshold into stardom magically erases past trauma, but in reality, the machinery of fame often magnifies it under a microscope.
Exactly. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring the extreme, often completely hidden pressures of the modern entertainment industry. And to do that, we are looking at a really fascinating, highly scrutinized case study from the materials we were exploring today.
Yeah, the actress Alexa Demie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically, her recent, highly anticipated return for season 3 of the massive hit show Euphoria. And, think about sudden fame in Hollywood like being locked inside a deep sea submersible.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, because fame isn't just a spotlight, it is a literal pressure cooker. If you bring unhealed trauma or insecurities into that environment, the pressure doesn't just, magically burn them away, it actively hunts for the tiny cracks in your hull.
Yeah, and her gritty survival instincts definitely got her into the room. But those same defenses become a massive vulnerability when the hull starts creaking under the weight of, well, public scrutiny, industry demands, and the psychological toll of immersive acting.
Absolutely.
And we are seeing that pressure play out in real time. I mean, after season 2 wrapped, she essentially vanished.
The total isolation.
Total isolation.
Oh.
And now she has resurfaced, and her return hasn't just sparked interest, it has ignited a wildfire of public concern. But, this isn't just a story about one actress taking a hiatus.
Yeah, not at all.
Her situation is a direct window into the industry's brutal new beauty standards, the neurological tax of method acting, and the unvarnished economics of Hollywood ageism.
So let's start with the immediate shock upon her return, which was entirely physical. Images of her surfaced online, and the internet practically broke. We are talking millions of views on tweets, side-by-side photos, hyper-analyzing her face.
The scrutiny was intense.
Insane. And there was just this overwhelming chorus of people asking, like, what happened to her beautiful full cheeks? Everyone jumped straight to Kylie Jenner comparisons and intense speculation about buccal fat removal.
Yeah, and it taps into a broader, quite terrifying epidemic we are seeing right now in the materials we reviewed. There is a severe wave of rapid, extreme weight loss sweeping across Hollywood, and it's heavily fueled by the mainstreaming of socially acceptable weight loss drugs.
But wait, let's pause here for a second. We just spent like the last decade championing body positivity and the thick aesthetic. Why is the industry suddenly reverting to this hyper-thin, almost 90s heroin chic look right now?
Well, it's mostly because of cyclical economics and the constant desire for exclusivity.
How do you mean?
So, high fashion and Hollywood are always trying to differentiate the ultra-elite from the mainstream. When cosmetic procedures like BBLs, lip fillers, body contouring, when those became relatively accessible to the general public, the thick aesthetic lost its exclusivity.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Right. So what is the new marker of extreme wealth and discipline? Unattainable thinness, maintained by expensive off-label pharmaceuticals, private chefs, and punishing fitness regimens. In their eyes, extreme thinness looks quote-unquote expensive again.
Which totally explains the actual regimen she was reportedly following. According to our notes, a popular lifestyle vlogger recently tried to replicate her specific diet, and it is basically starvation.
It's alarming.
Seriously. Breakfast is 2 poached eggs, half an avocado, and a green juice. Then you immediately jump into 40 minutes of intense cardio and an ab routine.
On just eggs and juice.
Yeah. And dinner is strictly vegetables and a lean protein, the evening snack, just a single piece of fruit. The vlogger who tried to survive on this nearly passed out during a hot yoga session and flat out called the routine sufferance.
Sufferance. Wow.
Yeah. And there are widespread blind items and reports circulating right now of her passing out on set simply because she refuses to eat.
Well, from a purely physiological standpoint, demanding that level of physical exertion on such a severe caloric deficit, it forces the human body into a state of catabolism.
Wait, catabolism, what is that exactly?
It means your body literally starts consuming its own muscle tissue for energy because there is no fuel coming in. The brain gets foggy, the nervous system gets shaky, and simply standing under hot studio lights becomes incredibly dangerous.
Man, as a viewer, it puts you in a really uncomfortable position. Okay, let's unpack this because Society currently tells us it is a sin to police women's bodies, right? We are told we shouldn't be zooming in on her jawline and dissecting her weight.
Right, absolutely.
But on the other hand, if we just politely ignore it while these stars physically waste away on screen, at what point does turning a blind eye become deeply toxic for the millions of young girls watching them?
And that is the ultimate societal double bind. If we wait until a tragedy occurs, until someone becomes severely, irreversibly ill, the immediate cultural reaction is always, why didn't anyone say anything? How did we let this happen?
Yeah, people love to act shocked after the fact.
Exactly. And look, we have to acknowledge that extreme weight loss can be triggered by stress or physical illness or deep psychological strain. But ignoring the widespread systemic push by studios who are actively mandating thinner stars, that does a profound disservice to everyone.
So it's not just on her.
Right. We can't just blame the individual actress for caving to the pressure of the submersible when the studio is the one turning up the pressure.
Okay, but you don't just wake up one day and decide to survive on green juice and like 400 calories. What is the mental state that makes that seem like a rational career move? We really have to look at the psychological burden she's carrying, because her path to fame was anything but typical.
Exactly. The physical state is a direct manifestation of the psychological burden.
Yeah.
And to understand that burden, you have to look at the massive juxtaposition between her upbringing and her current environment.
Right, because she didn't have the typical Hollywood nepotism pipeline. Like, she started acting in her mid-20s. She was raised by a single mother who worked as a makeup artist.
Right.
And she grew up in environments literally surrounded by meth labs across the street, homeless encampments by the river, and occasional intense infighting at home.
She was incredibly gritty.
Yeah, but she was headstrong. She found a creative spark in fashion magazines. She camped around LA with friends, crashing wherever she could. I read in the material she was even living inside an acting studio at one point just to make it work. She broke in through sheer grit.
And that specific type of grit, well, it's incredibly complex. It gives you profound survival instincts. You learn to read rooms, anticipate danger, hustle. But arriving in Los Angeles with that foundational trauma leaves you neurologically primed for a constant state of hypervigilance.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you are suddenly handed massive fame, vast amounts of money, and the overwhelming dissecting attention of the public, your nervous system literally doesn't know the difference between a real physical threat and the psychological pressure of stardom. It just stays in overdrive.
And then she takes on a role like Maddy Perez. We know she is a method actor, but she openly admitted she struggled deeply to dissociate from Maddy.
It's a very intense character.
Super intense, chaotic relationships, emotional volatility. She even got in trouble for behaving like Maddy when the camera stopped rolling.
Well, method acting isn't just a quirky artistic technique. There is a profound neurological tax to it. When you actively immerse your brain in a toxic, chaotic mindset for 12 to 14 hours a day on a film set, your nervous system doesn't recognize that it is pretend.
Are you serious? It thinks it's real.
Yes, your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline as if the character's trauma is actually happening to you. So if you are already carrying your own historical baggage from a gritty upbringing, keeping your brain marinating in that toxic state can severely compromise your ability to find your baseline identity again.
Which honestly makes the darker rumor circulating right now feel a lot less like internet gossip and more like a massive red flag.
The physical tics.
Yeah. Online sleuths have been obsessively analyzing her in recent interviews, specifically these repetitive jaw movements like swinging the jaw, heavily stabilizing the lips, and people who have publicly shared their own histories with active addiction have pointed out these exact physical tics as side effects of certain substances.
Right, speculating she might be using them to cope with the fame and the pressure of LA. And look, regardless of whether those specific rumors are factually accurate, what's fascinating here is that the public is collectively recognizing these intense signs of distress. It highlights a fundamental truth. The coping mechanisms required to manage that level of neurological overload are often highly destructive.
It really makes her isolation make complete sense. I mean, there's a quote where she was completely unsure if she'd even return for season 3. It's ironic she built this massive, dedicated fan base, but she didn't capitalize on it with endless press tours or brand grabs like her peers. She just disappeared.
Because that isolation wasn't just a casual break. It was likely a necessary retreat from an industry she was entirely unprepared for. Her gritty upbringing taught her how to survive physical adversity, sure, but absolutely nothing equips a person for the identity-erasing machinery of sudden global fame.
Right.
Retreating into isolation was likely the only way to stop the submersible from completely imploding.
But the pressure isn't just internal, right? There is a tremendous amount of professional friction and industry bias that actively pushed her away. Let's transition into the controversies that reportedly made her want to quit.
The indie film controversy.
Yes, the mid-90s controversy. So there is a resurfaced scene where a late-20s Alexa kissed an 11-year-old actor, Sonny Suljic. The internet dug this up recently, and the outrage was intense. People pointing out the inability of a child to consent.
Right. The public reaction centered entirely on that dynamic. The visual itself is deeply disturbing to a modern audience, regardless of the professional setting.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second based on the sources. The young actor came out publicly and stated it was completely consensual. He said he was stoked at 11 or 12 and had a great experience. And Alexa defended the role too. She said he was cool, she felt safe, and she desperately wanted to do a period piece. Quote, "There's no way I didn't want to be a part of it."
I hear you.
So if the actor himself is saying he felt safe, why is the internet still playing the ultimate moral arbiter?
It is a valid pushback, and I'm not taking a side here, but it speaks to the tension between individual experience and systemic power dynamics. Even if that specific set was heavily monitored and felt perfectly safe to those involved, the outrage is rooted in broader moral implications.
Like the power imbalance.
Exactly. A professional film set is inherently a workplace governed by massive power imbalances. You have a director calling the shots, producers, a whole crew watching. Placing a minor in an intimate dynamic with an adult crosses a hard line for many critics because it validates a scenario that, in the real world, is fundamentally predatory.
And then there is the glaring double standard. Critics pointed out immediately that if the genders were reversed, if a male actor in his late 20s filmed a kissing scene with an 11-year-old girl, the career consequences would be universally catastrophic.
Oh, there would be absolutely no debate. No statement from the young actress about feeling safe would save his career. That double standard is an undeniable reality of how society polices behavior based on gender. Yeah. But you cannot view this controversy in a vacuum. You really have to look at the sheer professional desperation that led her to take that role in the first place.
Right, her profound frustration with Hollywood casting. She faced constant rejection, expressing that she felt lead roles always defaulted to the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
It's an incredibly rigid system.
It is. As a mixed Latina actress, it was incredibly hard for her to get those career-making parts. Which brings us to, honestly, my favorite part of the research today, the age mystery.
Yes. The great age mystery.
To survive ageism, she seemingly had to hide her true age completely. Internet sleuths tracked down a high school yearbook from 2008. If she graduated in 2008, that squarely places her in her mid-30s right now. Yet she is playing a teenager on television. She is significantly older than her co-stars, uniquely secretive, keeping her birth year completely off Wikipedia.
We often frame hiding one's age as this act of extreme vanity, but we need to understand the actual economics of Hollywood casting. Historically, a female actor's commercial value drops exponentially the moment she hits her mid-20s.
Which is wild.
It is. If she had walked into that audition room and truthfully stated she was approaching 30, the studio algorithms and casting directors would have immediately disqualified her, regardless of her talent.
Yeah.
Fudging her age wasn't vanity, it was a financial necessity for professional survival.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Does hiding her age and dealing with the constant past rejection explain the rumored onset friction? Because rumor has it there is serious bad blood between her and Sydney Sweeney.
Well, put yourself in her shoes.
Okay.
You have endured the trauma of constant rejection based on your ethnicity. You've had to systematically erase your own age just to remain viable. And then you find yourself carrying massive cultural capital for a hit show. You're a fan favorite, yet you are the lowest paid cast member on the show.
Wow, the lowest paid.
That's the report.
Huh.
And meanwhile, you're watching your younger blonde co-stars secure mass paydays and endless opportunities that were systematically kept from you for years. That understandably breeds resentment and a deep desire to control your own narrative.
Man, so her retreat into isolation, her friction on set, it's all a defense mechanism against a system fundamentally designed to extract her value and discard her when she ages out.
Precisely. It is a protective measure.
When you pull back and synthesize the journey we've explored today, this isn't just a story about one actress taking a hiatus and returning. It is a really sobering, deep look into the Hollywood machine.
Absolutely. The machine demands physical perfection, exploits trauma for compelling performances, punishes aging, and creates an environment where stars feel they have to hide their true selves just to get a foot in the door.
And for you listening, when you watch these massive prestige TV shows, it's so easy to forget the human cost behind the glossy cinematography and the old Hollywood aesthetic that stars try to curate.
It is. Which leaves us with a final lingering question to ponder today.
Laid on us.
If we know that the entertainment industry routinely pushes its stars to the brink of physical and psychological exhaustion, rewarding crash diets and punishing natural aging, at what point does our demand for authentic and immersive television make us complicit in the very system we criticize?
Wow. Are we just paying for a front row seat to their implosions? Something for you to think about the next time you tune in. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.